Kawhi. There's two words that have been used about him: indifferent and selfish.
Why is Kawhi Leonard not available?
Still, something of a long shot that Kawhi Leonard plays this season. They haven't ruled him out.
The Clippers and Kawhi Leonard have had a rocky relationship basically since Kawhi arrived there in 2019, and it really hasn't gotten better at all. If anything, it's gotten worse since Kawhi has gotten there due to his injuries and him not being able to play, and it's been a commitment from the Clippers to continue to better the team in hopes that Kawhi will one day be able to play fully healthy, but it doesn't look like that day is ever going to come. It's going to come, I would assume, but right now it's just very, very dark times, and it kind of has been like that basically the entire time Kawhi Leonard has been there. It's been disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, and the Clippers have just continually over that time tried to make the roster better and better, because if you look at everything that they have done, the Clippers have basically went all in and pushed all of their chips into the middle of the table in an attempt to try to win a championship as long as they have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard there. As ever since they signed Kawhi Leonard, they've made nothing but moves that would make the team better. The first thing they went out and did was re-sign Terrence Mann to a multi-year extension, and then after that they went and traded for Paul George literally the very next day, and in that trade they actually gave up a lot. They gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is currently on MVP ladders early in the season, Danilo Gallinari, who's a very solid role player, and they gave up the rights to 7 first-round picks that they have. So they not only got rid of tons of draft capital, a solid role player, but also maybe an MVP level candidate. Now, I don't think Shai is going to win MVP, but he is a legitimate star level point guard that is very, very young, that they gave up on him to try to win right now. And as of right now, that trade is not looking great due to the success that they have had, mainly due to the fact that Kawhi Leonard has been injured. But then on top of that, they went out and signed a multi-year deal for Patrick Beverley and JaMychal Green. They just signed a whole bunch of veterans. And then even during the season, at the 2019 trade deadline, they went out and traded for Marcus Morris, where they traded 2 more first rounders and even gave up a second round pick. And what did all that result in? Despite Kawhi Leonard and Paul George being fully healthy for the majority of that season, they choked a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets in the second round of the 2019 playoffs. So even when they were fully healthy, they looked like they were going to make the conference finals, but no, the Denver Nuggets decided they had other plans and beat the Clippers in the second round. And that was really the only year we've seen so far since Kawhi's gotten there where both Paul George and Kawhi were healthy in the playoffs and were legitimately trying to make the finals. And then even after that 2019 kind of disappointment in the playoffs, they continued to go all in on this team and trying to win right now, as you can see in basically all of their offseason moves for that offseason. As they went out, they re-signed Marcus Morris to a multi-year contract, they signed Serge Ibaka, and even re-signed Reggie Jackson to the team, and then on top of that, they extended Paul George. And then, even then, at the 2020 through 21 deadline, they once again made a big trade for Rajon Rondo, where they traded Lou Williams and a second round pick, and Rondo was seen as that kind of missing piece. And even right before the playoffs, they went and signed DeMarcus Cousins. And this was before we knew DeMarcus Cousins' career was basically over and he would never be that talented. So at the time, it was a very big signing for the Los Angeles Clippers. But the things would start to take a turn very, very quickly. And this is really the first time we've seen Kawhi start to maybe disappoint the Clippers in any way. As in Game 4 of the second round against the Utah Jazz, Kawhi Leonard would go down with an injury that he would never return from for that season. And the series was tied 2-2 when he went down. So they did move on, but they made it to the Western Conference Finals where they would play the Phoenix Suns, and they still lost to them in only 6 games because Paul George played out of his mind in that series. And if they had Kawhi Leonard, you would have to believe that they would have been the team to make the NBA Finals. And I think they were the better team than Phoenix if Kawhi Leonard would have been healthy. So that injury really was the first time a Kawhi Leonard injury really held back the Clippers organization as a whole. But it only gets worse from there, because after that second season where he kind of had that disappointment in the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard would go on to miss the entirety of the 2021 through 22 season, and the Clippers did not know that at the time. They assumed he would come back kind of late playoff time, somewhere around then. which is probably a big part of the reason why they felt so comfortable re-signing him to a 4-year, $176 million contract that offseason. But he would never come back, and they definitely still assumed he would come back because they did everything they could to stay competitive while he was gone. They re-signed Reggie Jackson, they went out and signed Nicholas Batum, and they traded for Robert Covington and Norman Powell around the deadline. And what did all that result in? They missed the playoffs because they lost a play-in game to the New Orleans Pelicans. And I just think for sure that the Clippers had to have thought, with all the moves they made, all the money they used, all the resources they used, and all the money they gave Kawhi Leonard, they had to at least assume that he was going to come back last season at some point, and he just never did. And that is really the second time he kind of disappointed them, which was last year, and he did hold him back because that team was probably a contending level team if he would have played. And now finally, even going into this season that we are currently in, you can tell the Clippers expected Kawhi to be fully healthy this year. They gave him the entire season off last season. He didn't come back. He recovered from his injury. He had a whole offseason. He actually had 2 technical off seasons and a whole regular season to fully recover from this injury, and they fully expected him to probably be fully 100% back this season, and that just has not been the case. As through the first 20 Clippers games this season, Kawhi Leonard has only played in 5 of those, where he averaged 12.5 points per game, 1.5 steals per game, 2 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game, on 44% shooting from the field and 16% shooting from the three-point line. So definitely not Kawhi Leonard numbers, and something was definitely still bothering him. And yes, they went 4-1 in those games, but those were not against good teams that they played. And I think they beat like the Lakers, Detroit, Utah. They didn't beat good teams in that whole 4-1 thing. So yes, they were good when Kawhi was there, but Kawhi was obviously not the Kawhi we used to know. Now, you could argue that it was rust, but the fact that he's only played in 5 of their first 20 games shows that something is still very much bothering Kawhi Leonard, and the Clippers were not probably aware of this, as they remained 100% committed to trying to win with this team. As this offseason, they went out and signed John Wall and re-signed Nicholas Batum, and yes, it has worked out, and they have been very, very good for them, but I mean, you're not going to win a championship if Kawhi's not playing. It's that Kawhi is the main piece for this team. Paul George is another big piece, but he's been healthy. You have to get Kawhi Leonard back, and yes, I'm sure they hope to fully get him back later, and he has played sparingly, like I said, this season, so it does look more promising than last year that he might come back, but we have to wait and see. And if Kawhi doesn't play this year, for him to go 2 years on a 4-year, $176 million contract and not play a lot of games, and maybe not even play in the playoffs, might be one of the worst contracts in NBA history. And Kawhi Leonard, for the past few years now, has been single-handedly the reason the Clippers probably don't have a ring right now. And with all that being said, basically the Clippers are fully under the mercy of when Kawhi Leonard decides he can play and when his body is ready to play in the season. And if he doesn't play, they're going to really have to make some hard decisions on where they want to bring this franchise in the future and what they want to do with Kawhi Leonard as well. So assuming that Kawhi does come back fully healthy, it would be fun to watch the Clippers, see how good they can be. But if he remains out and remains injured like he has been for the past few seasons, things are going to get very, very interesting for the Clippers very, very quickly. But that is going to be it for this video. So if you like the point, hit the like button, subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day, because I have a blessed day. So you need to have a blessed day. Our glory, God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Bye.